There is a kind of decision that leaves no room for turning back. A moment when faith stops being just a belief and becomes a definitive choice. A choice that can cost freedom, dignity, and even life itself. And it is exactly at that point that today's story begins, because it reveals what happens when someone decides to remain faithful to God, no matter the cost. If this kind of content strengthens your faith, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and hit the like button, because that helps this message reach more people. The story of Saint Antonina of Nicaea takes place during the persecutions against Christians in the Roman Empire, most likely in the early 4th century, under emperors who saw Christianity as a threat to religious and political order. Nicaea, located in what is now modern-day Turkey, was an important center, but also a place where surveillance over Christians was intense. Antonina was a young Christian, known for her firm faith and for living a simple life devoted to God. There are no records of wealth, power, or influence in her life. And that is what makes her story even more striking, because it shows that holiness does not depend on position, but on decision. At a time when a single accusation was enough to have someone arrested, Antonina was denounced because of her faith. From that moment on, her life changed completely. She was captured by the authorities and taken in for interrogation. The objective was clear: make her deny Christ. The tension begins to rise at this point, because interrogations were not just questions, they were accompanied by threats, intimidation, and violence. The strategy was to break resistance little by little, to force a choice, to offer what seemed like a simple way out: deny the faith and live. But Antonina did not give in. Even under pressure, she remained firm. She did not try to negotiate, she did not try to adjust her faith to survive, and she did not look for a middle ground. For her, the truth was not something flexible, it was something absolute. According to the tradition preserved by the Church, when her persecutors realized she would not yield, they began to use more cruel methods. Antonina was subjected to humiliation and intense suffering. There are accounts that she was imprisoned under degrading conditions and exposed to situations meant to break not only her body, but also her dignity. And here is one of the most powerful points of this story. Even while being treated in an inhuman way, she did not lose her identity. She did not respond with hatred, she did not respond with despair, and she did not respond with rebellion. She remained faithful. This kind of fidelity is not built in the moment of pain, it is formed beforehand. It is the fruit of a life rooted in God. And that is exactly what makes Antonina's witness so powerful. Because when the moment of decision came, she already knew who she was, and in whom she believed. The accounts indicate that, when it became impossible to make her renounce her faith, she was condemned to death. Her execution was not just an act of punishment, but an attempt to silence a testimony that disturbed those around her. But what seemed like the end actually became the beginning of something greater. Because the death of martyrs has never been just the end of a life, but the birth of a testimony that crosses centuries. The story of Antonina is not detailed in every historical aspect, as happens with many early martyrs, but what remains is what matters most. She chose God above everything, and that choice was enough for her name to be preserved in the memory of the Church. Now this story stops being only about the past and begins to confront the present. Today, you may not face physical persecution, but you face other kinds of pressure. Pressure to adapt, to relativize the truth, to live a more convenient, more discreet, more comfortable faith. And the question that remains is direct. What do you do when your faith is tested? Do you negotiate, or do you stand firm? Do you adapt, or do you remain faithful? The life of Saint Antonina shows that true faith does not depend on circumstances. It does not depend on comfort, approval, or ease. It depends on decision. And that decision does not happen just once. It happens every day, in small and large choices, in visible and invisible moments. Antonina did not become strong in the moment of persecution. She was already strong before, because her life was grounded in God. And that changes everything. Because when the foundation is firm, pressure does not destroy, it reveals. Now the story is no longer distant. It comes closer to you. Today you can choose to live a superficial faith that adapts to any situation, or you can choose a real faith that remains even when it costs something. The decision is yours, and it defines the path you will follow. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and hit the like button, because your decision can also help this message transform other lives.